of life. I've added a key verse. It's James 1:12. It said, "Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that God has promised to those who love him."
Nasema ya kwamba heri mtu
Waraka wa Yakobo 1:12. Biblia inasema ya kwamba heri mtu astahimilie majaribu, kwa sababu akisha kukubaliwa ataipokea taji ya uzima Bwana alivyowaahidia wampendao.
Okay, so when we persevere under trial, we always have trials. As we always have obstacles. Another aspect of perseverance is, like we see, number one, it says, identify what you want. Make a goal. So we're going to write down goal. If you have no goal, you're not going to have anything to persevere on. We should have short-term goals. I have a short-term goal today to give this lesson. I have a short-term goal to get my motorbike fixed. I have a short-term goal to go to the shamba, to do some checking there. We should have intermediate goals. Our intermediate goals are, this coming week, we're going to go and continue to do harvesting in Uganda. And then we should have some long-term goals. My long-term goals are, I want to have my house finished so that when I get old, I have a place to stay. Nobody can push me out. So you have to identify your goals. Do you have goals today? How many of you have goals? Now, that's good to have goals. Now here's the next step, number 2. Are you willing to make the necessary sacrifices to pursue this goal to completion? Are you willing to make the necessary sacrifices? Are you willing to persevere? That is very important. Sometimes when we set out on a goal, we don't know what all the sacrifices are going to be. Sometimes we go hungry. Sometimes we suffer illness. Sometimes we have physical problems. And sometimes, if we would have known all of the obstacles, we might not have set out, because we'd say the price is too high. But when you have a worthwhile goal, ask yourself, am I willing to go through? Am I willing to persevere until I reach my goal? Am I willing to go to completion? Because there's going to be obstacles. God gives you an inspiration about something you can invest in. I can promise you there's going to be obstacles. Things are going to arise. But let me ask you something. Can you steer a parked bicycle? How many of you think you can steer a parked bicycle? You can't. You just dig a hole in the dirt with your steering wheel. The bicycle has to be moving. So it's patience with action. We have a goal, we have action, but we don't expect our goal to happen today. We know that it's going to be a process. We know that it's going to be sacrifices. When I teach the lesson about the 4 types of generations, which one includes sacrifice? Remember the 4 types of generations. We have the pioneers. We have the settlers. Squatters and parasites. Which ones are willing to sacrifice? Number 1 and number 2. If you want to reach your goal, part of it is persevering and sacrificing. No, it's not too strong, because sometimes we do give up. A sacrifice is when I give up one thing for another thing. So I give up my feelings that I want to just lay in bed today. I sacrifice my... often it's our feelings. Because we don't feel like doing something, we we sacrifice our emotions for the goal. So I think it could be terminology. We'll have to discuss sacrifice later on. But I think it's sacrifice is something. Okay, how many of you feel like going to work every day? No hands. Nobody feels like going to work every day of the year. So you sacrifice your feeling and you do what you need to do anyway because you have a goal. Okay. So that is part of persevering, is to have patience with action. Number 2 is to have goals. Number 3 is to pursue. Pursue our goals. Maybe that's a better word than sacrifice. Anyway, we're willing to pursue. You know, somewhere in here in the map of consciousness, when you come up into the upper level, you start to experience something called willingness. Before that, you were not a willing person. You were not. You did not want to add value. You just wanted to be selfish. Now, if Silas is the president of a company and he's looking for a new manager because the old manager has retired, is he going to look for someone who's selfish, or is he going to look for someone who's willing? Willing. So willingness to pursue, to advance this goal. When we get to that level of willingness, we have let down selfishness. But the selfish person is only looking at today. How can I benefit today? What can I eat today? Who can give me food today? Who can give me a mandazi today and a cup of tea? They don't think about the future. We have to have goals in life. If we don't have goals, we've put a full stop on our life. Lamai and I were talking about that on the way back from Uganda. Some people in this younger generation have put a full stop on their life. They said, I will not move forward. I will continue to live in my mom and dad's house. I will continue to tell them that they owe me food, they owe me clothes, they owe me a roof. It doesn't matter how old I am. I'm putting a stop on my life. I'm just going to be a baby. I was a little bit rough over there in Uganda. Let's say we have 25-year-old children who are still sucking the titty. They don't want to be called a baby, but somebody needs to knock their head because eventually it's going to get sore. You see what I mean? Now you're going to remember that one because it was a little bit rough, but you're not doing anybody an advantage to be an enabler of them. You need to teach your children to persevere. You need to persevere in school. If you aren't doing well in mathematics, take another course. If you aren't doing well in spelling. Now, Natasha's doing really well in school, but she has a problem with spelling. So we have to do something to help her persevere spelling, because how is she ever going to be a doctor if nobody can read her writing? They can make a big mistake. She can write down one medicine, but because her spelling is poor, they buy them another medicine. Is that going to work? No. So we have to persevere. So we don't know if she's going to become a doctor, but she has that dream someday. So that's a good dream. That's a goal. That's a long-term goal. It's going to take a lot of perseverance. Ask yourself, are you willing to make the necessary sacrifices? How many of you are willing? Now that I've been talking, are you willing to make the sacrifices? Yes. Okay. We've made that. We pursue. Are we willing to pursue? Yeah. Okay, number 3. Talent might open the door, but perseverance keeps you in the room. I have a friend in the U.S. who plays in the band. He plays lead guitar. He has trained his wife how to play bass guitar. She's a Latino. She has that talent, but he has trained her to have the perseverance. Now, there's another guy that came and joined them for a short time. He's got a pretty good voice, but he doesn't want to develop his talent. He's one of them, he just wants to sit around the campfire, strum on his guitar a little bit. But my friend said he never learns his timing, and so then he gets off time with the rest of the group. And what happens then is the groove is finished. I think you know what I'm talking about. When the music is right, when everything is right, you get a groove. You know what I'm talking about? You start to feel a movement. Okay, can you imagine if you have this groove going on and then somebody strikes the wrong notes? Somebody gets out of time? It ruins the groove. And so, you know, he worked with him and worked with him and worked with him. He says, you have the talent, but you need the perseverance. Talent will get you in the door. Perseverance will keep you in the room. This guy didn't persevere. He said, oh no, I'm good enough. Everybody tells me I'm great. You know, when I'm around the campfire, you ought to be a country western star. And so he doesn't want to pursue. He doesn't want to persevere. And so he has left the room. I'm sorry to say. He's no longer part of that band. And he feels bad, but he doesn't feel bad enough to change. I was thinking about it. There's a saying that says personal growth is directly related to the amount of truth we can hear about ourselves without running away. It's directly related. He doesn't want to hear the truth about himself, that he needs to persevere. He needs to learn timing. He needs to learn to keep the proper notes. There are people who have problems. You tell them the truth, they run away. No, that's not me. That's not me. No, I'm doing okay. I'm doing my best. You tell them the truth, they run away. Then there are people who persevere. They say, wow, I didn't know that about myself. Thank you. I didn't realize I was so harsh. I didn't realize I had that energy of condemnation, where when I speak to somebody, they feel condemned, they feel judged, they feel rejected. Let me work on that. And they begin to look, why do I give that energy of condemnation? Because I had that energy of condemnation. Maybe my mother condemned me. Maybe my father condemned me. Maybe a school, and I've never healed from that. And so they draw closer to the Lord. I'll go off on a side note here. We've got God up here at the top. We've got a triangle with the husband and the wife. Guess what happens when they get closer to God? They become closer. So if you're having a problem with a relationship, typically we can get closer to God. If the other person is a godly person, we will get closer to them. Plus, it'll be an example to them what they can do. I'm not focusing on Eunice's problems. She's not focusing on my problems. We're focusing on God. What does God want me to do? He wants me to persevere, even when we have problems, even when we have challenges, even when we have obstacles. We persevere. We have patience with action. As we persevere and get closer to God, and even our walk with God is perseverance. Every day. There are certain things that we do. We read our Bible. Do you always feel like reading your Bible? Be honest with me. I don't. Sometimes I'm lazy. Do we always feel like praying? I don't. Sometimes I'm lazy. Okay? Sometimes I get distracted. Sometimes, I remember back when I was working so hard, I woke up at 3:30 in the morning to go milk my cows, and sometimes when I knelt down to pray, I went to sleep. I mean, just be honest. Have you ever experienced that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that you're no longer a Christian. It just means that you try again.
Exactly.
You wake up. Okay. So, evaluate your current situation. Do you have goals? Do you have short-term goals? Are you willing to pursue or give up what you need to give up to achieve your goal. Evaluate your situation. If you have a goal, is it realistic? You know, at my age, suddenly I say, well, I want to become a doctor, a medical doctor. Is that a realistic goal? No. Because it's going to take how many years of schooling? Like 7 or 8. In the U.S., it's going to take 8 years of schooling. In 8 years, I'll be almost 72. So that's not a realistic goal, is it? There are people who say, I want to own a big company, but they don't even have enough money to buy a Mandazi. Is that a realistic goal? No. Evaluate where you are. Do what you can. Start with what you have. Build on that. Keep moving. I've been completely broke in my life. Back when I was like 23, I started my first occupation. I was farming. That year we had a lot of problems. The weather was dry. The maize burned up in the field. That winter, it was the coldest winter we've ever seen in Michigan. It was 20 degrees below zero Fahrenheit. So that's, I don't know how much Celsius, but it's way below zero. How many of you experienced below zero? Have you experienced below zero? Okay, we got one hand. We got two hands. Yeah, we've got a few. It's cold, isn't it? Let me tell you, when you're out playing hockey and you're breathing, you'll actually get ice on your mustache if you have a mustache. So I remember that. It was 20 below, and we were. Shave before you go. So evaluate your situation. Luke 14:28. Don't begin until you count the costs. For who would ever begin construction of a building without first calculating the cost to see if there's enough money to finish it?
Inasema
kwamba maana
We're going to have to get a tech guy, I think. Just read it.
inasema ya kwamba maana ni nani katika nyinyi kama akitaka kujenga mnara asiyeketi kwanza na kuhesabu gharama kwamba anavyo vya kumalizia.
Okay, I think this has failed. I'll speak up so the rest of you can hear me, and we'll have to get a tech guy for next week. Maybe Nelson can fix it now. It said, don't try to start something. Don't try to start something before you consider the cost. Now, there's going to be a caveat to that. When we get to the end of the lesson, there are times that we start something without considering the cost. But that's a special faith venture. All right. Number 5 is strategy. Once you have the plan of what I want, the goal, then you need a strategy. A strategy is a realistic plan of action that will help you reach the goals. So, part of perseverance is to have goals. Part of it is to pursue or to trade. Let's see, the Bible talks about redeem the time. How many know what redeem means? And what's it mean?
Like to buy something back.
To give something. So I have a coupon. I give it to Kipchumba to redeem it, and he gives me my food. I have a certificate. I redeem it, and he gives me something. So when you redeem the time, you use your time to gain something. Right. So when we redeem the time, we pursue, and also we need to have a strategy. We need to have a plan of action.
Congressman Nelson. No, there's a lot of people there. I think here. So we need to have a plan of action. When Eunice started the boutique on the other side, she kind of turned the design over to me. I had a design in my head. Now, we've evaluated it and we've made some changes because that plan didn't work perfectly. Now we have some more ideas that we want to do. So, we keep moving. And as you move, you become. So get a plan of action, a strategy, start moving, and as your bicycle is moving, sometimes you're driving here, God puts an obstacle in the road, and we turn slightly. But we don't stop. We don't come up to the obstacle and stop. We keep looking at the goal. And that's something that's really important. Eunice was talking about driving a car. When I got my motorcycle over here, I hadn't rode a motorcycle in a long, long time. And one of my friends from the U.S. said, just focus on where you want to go. If there's a rut here and a rut here and there's a small path in the middle, he said, focus on the path. Don't focus on the ruts. Because where you focus, you will go.
Yeah.
And so that really helped me. When I go into the mega center, the arm comes down. There's a narrow space I can get between the arm and the gate. Before I was looking at the gate and I was looking at the arm and I'm trying to navigate. Now I'm going through the narrow space. I just look at that space. I don't even worry about these things. I know I can make it. And that's the way it is with our goals. We persevere. We focus.
Oh, thank you. Wow. We have more tech people here.
Yeah.
Praise the Lord. We can't do everything ourselves. Break down, number 6, take action. Break down the work into manageable pieces. Consistency is the key. How many of you can eat an elephant? I should see every hand. I've already told you this one. Everybody can eat an elephant. One bite at a time. It might take you a while, but you're going to get there. All right? Consistency is the key. I've had some huge, huge jobs in U.S. that look completely overwhelming to me. I said, I don't think I can do this. When I broke it down, I said, I can do this small part. Tomorrow I can do this small part. By the end of the month or by the end of the year, we had accomplished. Break it down. Make it into manageable pieces. If you have a tree in your yard and you can't afford somebody to come and cut it, but you have an axe, you say, oh, I can't cut that tree, it's too big. But how about if you cut for 15 minutes every day? Will the tree come down sometime? It will. Break it down into manageable pieces. Number 7, overcoming obstacles and distractions. Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through him who gives me strength. Philippians 4:7. 4:13. Philippians 4:13. Excuse me.
Biblia inasema ya kwamba nayaweza mambo yote katika yeye anitiaye nguvu.
Who gave you the strength to get out of bed this morning?
God.
Yeah, it's the grace of God. Because some people die in their sleep. And I always make a joke. I say they wake up dead. But I don't think they wake up in this land. They woke up somewhere else. Yeah, we go to sleep. And we don't know that when we go to sleep. We don't know if we'll wake up here or if we'll wake up somewhere else. We might wake up dead. Okay, so when we overcome obstacles and distractions, I want to know, where do you turn when you have an obstacle or distraction? Most of us turn to our ego. Our ego is our operating system of things that we have learned to do that get action. And sometimes our ego will get a short-term action, but it will ruin a relationship for the long term. If we're acting out of anger, if we're acting out of fear, we might intimidate or manipulate someone into doing something quickly, but in the long term, we don't build a relationship. It's not a win-win relationship. So when we turn to God and we say, I have this problem, we're looking for not ego, we're looking for inspiration. So part of perseverance is having inspiration from God. When we have that inspiration, now we can see how to get through this obstacle or this distraction. There are good distractions and there are bad distractions. There are people who have asked me to do certain things, and it's a good thing to do. But it's a distraction from what God wants me to do. So I have to ask God, is this what something, when you become willing, up here in this zone, everybody wants you to do everything. Because they see that you're willing. Oh, come and help me with this. Come and help me with this. Come and help me with this. And so then you have to start sorting through, what does God want me to do? Because you're willing and you want to help and you want to do what you can, but some things are not part of your destiny. So that becomes a distraction. And so some distractions are bad. They're things that hinder us. Some distractions try to get us off in the wrong direction. And we have to ask God for direction. We have to have inspiration. If we want to persevere for success, we need connection with God. We need inspiration from God. Otherwise, you can be climbing the ladder, you can be persevering so hard, but when you get to the top of the ladder, you find out the ladder's leaned against the wrong wall. This wasn't the place where God wanted me. So connection or inspiration, I'll write connection. Might be easier to think of it that way. Connection with God. Brings us what? Inspiration. When we follow the inspiration, we persevere because it's patience with action. Number 8, evaluate and adjust. When needed, adjust the plan without abandoning the goal. If you have an inspiration from God, Anne had an inspiration to become a lawyer. She's had to make some adjustments, but she didn't abandon her goal. Eunice had an inspiration to start a boutique. We're making adjustments, but we're not abandoning the goal. So when you have an inspiration from God, when you're connected with God, and you believe that God has inspired me, then you pursue that. Now there's going to be some things that will happen that will challenge that. But you say, God has inspired me. He will, whatever God has started, He is able to finish. And we begin to believe that. And that can be even in our own salvation. There are people who have emotional burdens or baggage, psychological baggage, personality problems. But we have set our mind, we've surrendered our life to God, and we say, even though I have this problem, I'm going to pursue. I'm not going to give up. God will help me. Maybe I will fight this certain problem until the day I die. That's okay. Because really, what proves to you more that somebody has faith? The guy who never makes a mistake, or the guy who makes a mistake and corrects and keeps moving? Makes a mistake and corrects and keeps moving. It's the one who corrects and keeps moving. The guy who never has a mistake, you can't relate with him. Because he's probably making a mistake and we just don't know about it. Now here's another one that I've had to learn. Number 9, celebrate your achievements. Set a goal. When you reach that goal, do something special. Reward yourself. Go out for lunch or take tea with your friends. Say, hey, I've reached this mile marker. I'm very happy. Yeah, go for Namachoma. Like Salah says. We've reached a goal. We've got to this point. We've got all of the maize planted. Let's go out for Namachoma. Okay? We've got all of the painting done in the restaurant. Let's stop and take a cup of tea. Okay?
And that has a good feeling.
It has a good feeling. It brings a good feeling. Then when you reward your achievements, and you know, when I was young, I had to reward myself just to get out of bed. I didn't want to get out of bed. But my mom was a good cook, and so I knew that if I got out of bed, we had to get up like at 4:30 in the morning when I was a child. And that's tough for a child. It's still dark, it's cold, the snow is in the ground. You don't want to go out and feed the calves. You don't want to go out and milk the cows. You don't want to do those things. But I knew if I got up, there's a piece of pie waiting for me.
Yeah.
Or a donut in the kitchen. Okay? And so I would get up and reward myself, and then I'd go out and do my work. Now, I want to go to the caveat that I talked about, number 10. Faith ventures. Sometimes we count the cost, and there's something missing. Dr. Baraka said that's always where the miracles are, is when something is missing. Remember Abraham, God told him to sacrifice his son. Something's missing because God promised him this son. So how can I sacrifice this son? The only one. And God keep his promise. But he pursued. He persevered. And in this journey, they took 2 boys with them to carry the firewood and to take the fire. They got to a certain place, they left them behind. Sometimes we have to leave people behind to pursue where God wants us to be. They left people behind. They went on, and Isaac carried the firewood. I'm assuming Abraham carried the fire because it was smaller. They went to the top of the mountain. Then he bound Isaac, and you got to remember Isaac was a big guy by then, and Abraham was what, 125? So how did that work? 125-year-old man tying up a 25-year-old man. Isaac had to submit too. He had to say, if this is God's plan, it's okay. I'm going to surrender. Then when Abraham lifted the knife to kill his son, God said no. He said, I have prepared a sacrifice for you. Where's the sacrifice on top of the mountain? There's no sheep on top of the mountain. The sheep are at the bottom of the mountain. But God had put a ram up in the bushes. So sometimes when we start a venture, a faith venture, there's something missing. And that's where the miracle comes in. The miracle is that God provides as you need it. But in those situations, we should be getting confirmations. We should, Lamai and I had this faith venture of starting a farm where there's never been farming done ever in Uganda. And we've faced a lot of challenges. Now, we've come to harvest, and we in Kenya Seed said, you have to have a store to put this seed in because of the rain. Well, we knew there was a store there that somebody had built. I went and looked at the plaque. They just built it last year. Somebody from the Netherlands come over and had an inspiration to build this huge store. Nobody's using it. So we started inquiring, and they said, yeah, there's a farmer's co-op here. You can pay some small rent, and you can use the store. Okay, that's a faith venture, but it's a confirmation that what we're doing is of God. Because as we get there, He provides the needs. And so there are people who say, God's telling me to do this, God's telling me to do that, but there is no confirmation. It's not working for them. You see what I mean? People are running away. And they say, no, 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 no. I know what I'm doing. Jesus has told me to do X, Y, Z. I'm going to pursue X, Y, Z. They lose all their money. They say, it's okay. Finally, they're down to nothing, and they have nothing to work with. But there should be confirmations along the way. Noah was probably one of the most persevering Bible characters I have ever read of. How many years was he building the ark? Does anybody know? It was 120 years. All this time, he was preaching to the people, there's a flood coming. Prepare yourself to come into the ark so you can escape the flood. For 120 years, they told him, you're stupid. It has never rained. It never will rain. Because before the flood, it didn't rain. They had a heavy dew in the morning, and the dew was what watered the plants. So they never had rain until the flood. He persevered for 120 years. But he had confirmations. The material came in. The money for the workers came in. The plan was in his mind. He saw this thing taking shape, even though he was building this huge boat. And if you ever get to the U.S., near Cincinnati, Ohio, there's a replica of the ark. It's the same size. It's got model animals. It's fascinating. It talks about the possibility of ways that they could have ventilated it when you have all those animals in there. And it showed when the ship comes up, it would draw air in underneath. When the ship come down, it would push out the bad air. It's a good concept. I don't know if that's how it worked or not, but I know there had to be ventilation. I know there had to be food. There had to be water. There had to be people tending these animals. They suggested that these animals were small, which makes sense. They're more manageable. They eat less food. And they were on there for what, 1 year? And so by the time they got off, they were bigger. They were able to mate and start producing more animals. They didn't bring old animals on. So it really opens up your mind. If you ever get to the U.S., try to go to the ark. It'll really open your mind about what Noah did. Another one is the 3 Hebrew boys. Remember, this was a short-term thing now. The king said, bow down to my idol. And they said, no, we can't do that. God doesn't want us to do that. Well, can you imagine if there's thousands and thousands of people laying on their faces and there's 3 boys that are standing up? They stick out. They can't hide. And so he said, I told you to bow down. They said, no, that's not what God wants us to do. We can't bow down to this image. So he built the fire even hotter. He said, if you don't bow down, I'm going to throw you in the fire. He finally got it so hot that when the guards came and threw him in, the guards died. Then he looked in the fire and he said, I thought you threw in 3 boys. There's 4 in there now, and one of them is like the Son of God. So then he called them to come out. He smelled of them. They didn't even smell like smoke. He checked their hair. They didn't even have any singe spots on their hair. It's a miracle. So sometimes God asks us to start a faith venture. Sometimes it takes 120 years. Sometimes it just takes a few hours. When we have a faith venture, though, there needs to be confirmation that this is from God. Gideon, I didn't write Gideon down here. God told Gideon to go destroy an army. Gideon said, I don't know if this is God or not. So he threw out the fleece. And he said, if this is from God, I want the fleece to be dry and all the land around it to be wet with dew. The next morning it was exactly that way. Then he wasn't sure again. So he said the next day, he said, I want the fleece to be wet, but I want all the land around to be dry. The next morning he wrung water out of the fleece, but the land was dry. So we need confirmations that this is from God. Because our mind can fool us. Our ego can fool us. When you start out on a faith venture, you're not counting your coins to see if you have enough money to buy your bicycle. This is a faith venture. So we need to be connected with God. Daniel. How about Daniel? He always prayed at the window 3 times a day, morning, noon, and night. Then these evil men watched him and they said, okay, so we're going to make this law. And they appealed to the ego of the king. They said, oh, king, you're so great. How about if we make a decree that for 30 days people can only pray to you? Oh, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Yeah, why don't we do that? We can make that law. So they make that law and they make sure Daniel knows. And Daniel said, no, I'm not praying to your king. I'm praying to God. And they said, what happens if you don't pray to the king is you get thrown in the lion's den. Daniel said, I believe in God. So he continued to persevere. He opened the window. He didn't go hide in the closet. He did the same thing he had always done every day. He opened the window. He prayed to God. So what they do, they threw him in the lion's den. They look down in there. The lions are silent. He's petting them. No problem. There's an angel there. It's closed their mouth. So then the king was really upset. He said, I don't know what's become of Daniel. Daniel's my good friend. He couldn't sleep. Finally, early in the morning, and he said, God, and Daniel, has your God delivered you? He said, don't worry. God has delivered me. Then he understood the plan of the evil people. He said, throw them in there. He threw them in, and it said the lions tore them apart before they ever hit the ground. They were very hungry. But he had confirmation from God. He had a connection with God. Another is Moses. Moses was 80 years preparing for his mission. He was 40 years in the temple because he was the adopted son of the king's daughter. He was doing whatever he wanted to do, learning how to enjoy the pleasures of sin. He was 40 years. Then he knew he had a calling from God, and he tried to do it on his own strength. He saw somebody, one of the Egyptians was abusing one of the Israelites, so he rose up and killed him, which was not God's plan. Then he had to go to the backside of the desert. He's completely away from his comfort zone. He only has God to rely on. Plus, he's learning how to live in the desert. So he's 40 years in the temple, 40 years on the backside of the desert. These is all preparation. You may be in the temple today, or you may be on the backside of the desert. Accept it. You're in preparation for your calling, to reach your destiny. You may be somewhere where you don't want to be. Then, the reason I know he enjoyed the pleasures of sin is because when God said, now lead these people out, he made excuses. He said, I can't, I have a stammering tongue. And so then his brother Aaron came and helped him, and he was still in question. God said, throw down your staff. He said, I can't throw down my staff. This is how I herd the sheep. He said, throw down your staff. And so he threw it down. He surrendered to God. He gave up his talent. And then it turned into a snake. All right, God said, pick up the snake. He said, no, I'm afraid of the snake. God said, pick up the snake. He picked it up by the tail, and it turned back into a staff. But from then on, it was not a normal staff. So when we have a faith venture, we have to give our all. Then we have to overcome our fear. Those are some things that are typical of a faith venture. We surrender everything to God, even the thing that we think we need. Then it changes, and we become afraid. And God said, keep moving. We have to overcome our fear. When he picked it up, then there was magicians that tried to do the same thing. They threw down their staff. It turned into a snake. But guess what? Moses' snake ate up all the other snakes. So it was a confirmation from God. So when you move into a faith venture, make sure there's some confirmations. I was given this lesson somewhere. They said, no. Moses wasn't just in preparation for 80 years. He was in preparation for 120 years, because then he was 40 years in the wilderness. And so there's that point. He probably was still learning, because there was times And I know a friend of mine calculated one time how many train cars of water it would take just to feed these people water every day. And there was no train in the desert. So one time they were without water, and he struck a rock. And they got enough water for these millions of people. See, these are miracles. Most of us aren't going to experience them at this level. But I think you're getting my point. When you move forward with faith, God inspires you. Make sure there's confirmations from God.
Yeah.
Make sure that it's God who's leading you and not your ego. Now, one last question here. Do you see an area in your life where you need to just keep persevering? How many of you see an area where you just need to keep persevering? You just need to follow God. Are you willing to do that?
Yes.
God bless you.
Thank you.